And we're back. Holy heck, that took a while. For those just joining us, I have, over the past 18 months, painted fantasy character versions of every one of the 118 elements of the periodic table, and by the final 16, I was so stretched I needed to pause everything else, including video production, and just do them. The absolute last painting, Oganesson, was a religious experience. I felt so elated, so transported and euphoric. It was like, drugs have nothing on actually finishing a large project. Be told. Incidentally, I've released an exclusive Oganesson video for my patrons over on Patreon, and I would love for you to join us over there and watch it. Not to mention gain access to my elemental write-ups and behind-the-scenes and tidbits. For as little as $1 a month, you could be supporting all of this. Meanwhile, like and subscribe and engage. It's good for me and for your soul. While you do that, let's talk about germanium. Germanium was a fairly simple concept, but unusual in that she's not being shown full figure. Instead, I saw her leaning on her elbows and gazing upwards with epic hair. Germanium is almost entirely taken up with technology, you see. It's a crucial component of semiconductors, fiber optics, solar cells, cell phones, LEDs, and the list goes on and on. For this reason, I've dubbed her innovation, which is a concept I've long felt was lacking in your standard tarot. Innovation is important. It's problem-solving and ideas implementing. It's crucial stuff. In a little while we have a life-imitating art situation, and I'll get to do some innovating within the painting process. By the way, that edge is dark because it ties to gallium, but don't get attached. We're going to pull the darkness back and give it more subtlety in a bit. Now, I know we're not supposed to have favorites when it comes to children and paintings, but I just cannot help it here. I expected the angle of the face to make it difficult. I was anticipating it fighting me every step of the way, and instead she almost painted her own lovely face. The light is just right, the expression is perfect, and yeah, she may just be my favorite brainchild. It's easy to love someone who makes me look this good. Not that we didn't have any difficulties, but that's coming up. And no, I do not have a favorite child. I have 5 children, of which I birthed the bookends, and each of them is crucial to my happiness in this world, so there. The older ones will tell you that the youngest is my favorite, but they are wrong. You see, they got to be little together. All 4 are within 3 years of age, so they had playmates, and I remember vividly, even if they have forgotten, that we used to do a lot more kid-oriented stuff than we do now. There were more family trips to the park and the zoo, and riding scooters to Sevi to get Slurpees in the summer evenings, and snow forts in the winter, and there were con weekends when we got a hotel room, and treasure hunts at Easter, and we had a ball pit in the playroom. But then Avi came along when the youngest of them was 6, and as he hits the ages when the fun things used to happen, his siblings aren't interested, and his dad and I may or may not be able to create space for them. So, yeah, I indulge Avi when I can. I try to balance the sense of arriving late to the party with a sense of getting fun things that are all his own. Leave a comment if you are the youngest child and you had, or wish you had, someone keeping it special for you. I may screw up as a parent, but it won't be for lack of love. And I might screw up as an artist, but it won't be for lack of effort. I've been doing this for so long. When I was 7, I subscribed to one of the children's magazines, Highlights maybe, and it had drawings in the back pages sent in by readers. They were printed small with captions like Puppy by Kirsty, age 8, or Robot by Billy, age 6, and I would sit down and redraw all those other kids' drawings. I would try to do better than them, especially if they were older than me. I was such a little prick. Hopefully I'm not that saturated with hubris anymore. Been knocked about a bit, thank the gods. For example, at age 20, I was, for reasons, living in a car with my best friend and his then wife who was pregnant, and in order for us to not starve, I drew tattoo flash. For my viewers unfamiliar with ye old analog world, a flash artist would have 11 by 14 inch arrangements of tattoo designs drawn in full color but with a black and white version on hand. We would drive all over town, even up to Denver, using a phone book to find tattoo parlors where I would walk in with my flash portfolio and show them to the owner. If they thought my work would sell, they'd order a set of 5 sheets for $50, the colored ones to go on the wall, the black and white to go in a file so that it could be Xeroxed when someone requested it, and then used as a template. Then we would go to Kinko's and get the set printed again, which cost about $6, and then take it around to the next tat shop. This was the most humbling experience of my young life. Tattoo artists are a blunt people, and they do not attempt to cushion the blow when they think your art sucks. And plenty of them did. Many, many times I was told that my work was garbage. Some were more specific. It's too cutesy, too derivative, too stilted. But then we'd hit a shop that loved my artwork and bought it, and as that tended to be one shop out of every 4, if we hustled, we could sell 2 sets in a day, which would get us a hotel room and pizza that night. Lather, rinse, repeat the next day, and we did this for 3 months, which meant I had to hear that I sucked a lot. You grow a thick skin or you give up, and I clearly haven't given up. So here we get into the hair, and I hit a snag. I could see it in my head, but I wasn't quite sure how to achieve it, so I went with this monolithic look and absolutely hated it. It's going to take me a while to accept this, as usual. First, I pushed through my doubt for a while, adding the technologies that use germanium, such as solar panels and resistors and fiber optics and etc. So it's time to settle in for a long stint with the Bride of Frankenstein, but without, as Buddha said, getting attached. Oh man, those white streaks make it even more horror movie, don't they? Yoicks. Let me stress that I have no problem with gigantic hair, and I adore the Bride of Frankenstein aesthetic, but it just wasn't right here. I was chasing an image that my muse had held out to me, and this wasn't it. You know, I remember the moment this project landed in my brain. That's what it felt like. It wasn't me building a complex creation on the basis of a simple idea. I've done that plenty of times, and I know what it feels like. The elements arrived in my head fully formed, and I could see hydrogen, pregnant against the stars with a sword on her back, and it took my breath away. Every character after that followed suit. I would do some research, learn stuff, and the image would come into focus behind my eyes. All I had to do was get good enough to do it justice. Which I haven't, but I'm proud of the effort. Sometimes I wonder what they all would have looked like if this project had chosen Brian Froud's brain or Alan Lee's. Those 2 are college roommates, I heard, back in the day. Now we've reached the point where I decided to try something different. Breaking the hair up into sections was risky because I thought it could so easily look contrived or, sculpted, like an updo from Blow Dry, which is a criminally underrated movie, by the way, and if you haven't seen it, do. The cast was golden, and the story was dark and kind and complicated, but it all revolved around the National Hair Championship being held in a small town in Britain. Bill Nighy and Alan Rickman as ancient hair art rivals. Rachel Griffiths knocked it out of the park. Natasha Richardson is tragic and lovable. Watch for a young Josh Hartnett. Absolutely a delight. But I digress. In practice, it was easy to not make the hair look stupid merely by adding the tendrils. It's funny how exciting it was to be on the right track, and time flew by. And I had initially done the mass of hair, fearing that individual strands would take too long, which just shows what I know. The best part was I could see that it was good. but I didn't know why until I did some further research and discovered that germanium has nanotube applications. Yes, it is joining carbon in the nanowire game, and this hairdo looks remarkably like said tubes. Honestly, it gave me goosebumps when I saw them. I was like, oh, that's why. This is the reason we listen to our intuition. At this time, it may be appropriate to point out that germanium is in the column under carbon and silicon, and I signified this by dressing her in gray. Yeah, I know, it's not quite as obvious as the white-haired girls in the boron column, or the chalcogens all being satyrs, but it is a visual cue. The pnictogens have even less of a family resemblance. Their only distinguishing feature is that they definitely aren't any of the other P-block families. I could have done better, I think. Perhaps somewhere, someday, a talented, shameless child will redraw them the right way. Apropos of nothing, I have been rearranging the posters and decor in our house today so that we can devote an entire wall to Tolkien and another to Star Wars. Before, they were both spread out amongst all the rooms, mingling with other fandoms, but now I've got them a little more concentrated. It's funny that Jason and I came to this relationship 14 years ago with opposite aesthetics. He's a minimalist, I'm a goblin. And yet we meet and merge in the style I would call epic nerd. The Lord of the Rings stuff, Escher Prince and ElfQuest figures, those are mine, while the anime figures and most of the Star Wars are his. I honestly cannot remember which of us caused the Doctor Who, Firefly, and Marvel collections, but I'm a happy lady, and I love my home. Praise Bob. Now that I'm happy with the nanotube hair, I'm filling it with the things germanium is so crucial for. The blue objects at our temple are solar cells, and we have resistors and fiber optics and such. Got to clean up some of these split ends, of course. You know, as I mentioned, the very first microchips used germanium as a substrate. The microscopic smoothness is only one of the unique features of this element which has literally changed the world. And it's not done. Quantum computers are not exactly common as yet, but they use germanium too. The ideas will never stop coming. And the darker side getting toned down, as promised, and eventually the LED lightning bugs will be the finishing touch, although I do those off-screen because I cannot airbrush while people are watching. And that's our germanium. I wonder what her clothes actually look like. I wonder if this hair is achievable in costume form. I wonder where next she will take us. And until then, avoid hubris, embrace ideas, create a worthwhile childhood for someone, and stay healthy.